The date is September 12th, 1944. The strategic fulcrum of the Pacific War is poised to shift. Thousands of miles from Washington, the immense gears of the American war machine are grinding towards the Japanese homeland. And the next objective is critical. Operation Stalemate 2. The invasion of Peleliu is not just another island hop. It is the strategic linchpin intended to secure General MacArthur's flank for the impending massive liberation of the Philippines. An airfield on Peleliu in enemy hands is a dagger pointed directly at the heart of that operation. This is the geopolitical landscape into which Major Robert Cowboy, Stout's F-6F Hellcat, descends. His mission, dispatched from the deck of the USS Hornet, is deceptively simple. Photograph the northern airfield at Peleliu. Intelligence reports the lifeblood of any invasion have assured command the field is abandoned, likely a forgotten ruin from previous bombing raids. It is a routine reconnaissance, a box-checking exercise. The automatic camera in his Hellcat clicks steadily as he sweeps over the island at 8,000 feet. Then, Stout looks down, and the entire strategic calculus of the Pacific theater shatters. His blood runs cold. The airfield below is not abandoned. It is a hornet's nest. It is packed, wingtip to wingtip, with Japanese aircraft. Mitsubishi Zeros, Nakajima bombers, dozens of them. Fuel drums are stacked in neat, vulnerable rows. Ground crews swarm every plane. This isn't a graveyard. It's a staging ground. They are preparing for a massive, coordinated strike. Stout's mind, trained for the cold arithmetic of aerial warfare, counts quickly. He estimates at least 40 aircraft, all fully armed, all fully fueled. He knows, with sickening certainty, exactly what they are waiting for. In just 3 days, 28,000 U.S. Marines will storm the beaches of Peleliu, initiating one of the largest and most brutal amphibious assaults of the war. The invasion fleet is already steaming toward the island, a massive, lumbering target. These 40 Japanese planes are a perfectly positioned ambush force, poised to unleash a massacre on the landing craft before a single Marine boot touches the sand. Stout's training is explicit, a rigid doctrine drilled into every reconnaissance pilot. Spot the enemy, radio the coordinates, and return to base. The job is to observe and report, not to engage. This is especially true when alone, flying over an airfield bristling with anti-aircraft guns. But at 8,000 feet, two realities collided. The first was the Naval Regulation Manual. The second was the impending slaughter of 28,000 men. Stout understands military bureaucracy. It is a system designed for order and accountability, but it is a peacetime luxury. By the time he lands on the Hornet, files his report, is debriefed by intelligence, and command can assemble a formal strike package, hours will have passed, maybe a full day. The Japanese, alerted by his reconnaissance pass, would scatter these aircraft, hiding them in fortified revetments, or worse, launching them preemptively against the approaching fleet. The Marines, soon to be packed into vulnerable landing craft, do not have time for proper procedure. They need these planes destroyed now. Stout circles higher, his camera forgotten. He is no longer a photographer. He is a predator. He studies the layout below. In their haste or arrogance, the Japanese have made a critical, fatal error. The aircraft are packed tightly together, a tinderbox surrounded by exposed fuel drums. It is a target of opportunity so perfect it feels like a trap. One good hit, in exactly the right place, could start a chain reaction that would consume the entire field. He checks his ammunition counters. 6 50 caliber Browning machine guns, 2,400 rounds total. It is, by his calculation, roughly 12 seconds of sustained fire. It is not nearly enough to destroy 40 aircraft individually, strafing them one by one, but it is more than enough to light a very big fuse. At 28 years old, Robert Stout is not a reckless pilot. He is a seasoned veteran of 63 combat missions. He has survived desperate dogfights with Zeros, pressed attacks against fortified positions under blistering fire, and landed his aircraft on pitching carrier decks in storms that kept other pilots grounded. He knows the razor-thin margin between courage and suicide. What he is contemplating now is a walk directly on that line. The moment he attacks, every anti-aircraft gun on Peleliu will vector onto his single aircraft. He has no wingmen to suppress ground fire. He has no one to cover his escape. One lucky 20mm shell to his engine or cockpit, and he will vanish into the jungle with no possibility of rescue. The alternative, however, is unacceptable. If he doesn't attack, those 40 aircraft will launch. They will come in waves, turning the beaches of Peleliu into a killing zone. The decision takes less than 30 seconds. Stout pushes the throttle forward and rolls the Hellcat into a steep, terminal dive. The altimeter unwinds as if disconnected from reality. 8,000 feet, 5,000, 3,000. Stout drops toward the jungle canopy, his entire world narrowing to the gun sight. This is a moment of pure, tactical clarity. His plan is not complex, but it is incredibly precise. Come in fast and low, hit the fuel dumps first, and use the ensuing chaos as cover to get out before the anti-aircraft gunners can find their target. At 2,000 feet, he levels off, pushing the throttle to the firewall. The Hellcat's Pratt & Whitney R2800 engine, a 2,000 horsepower behemoth, screams at maximum power. The aircraft accelerates to nearly 400 miles per hour, a blue-black streak just 50 feet above the jungle. The trees are a green blur. Then, the airfield appears, exploding into view through a gap in the trees. For the Japanese on the ground, this is an impossibility. An attack, yes, but not like this. Not a single American fighter appearing at treetop level, alone. They look up in confusion, some freezing in disbelief, others diving for cover. Critically, none of them reach their anti-aircraft positions in time. The element of surprise is absolute, a tactical weapon in itself. Stout's eyes lock onto the northern row of aircraft. He centers his gun sight on a cluster of fuel drums stacked precariously between two Nakajima bombers and squeezes the trigger. All 6 50 caliber machine guns open fire at once, a combined roar that drowns even the engine. The sound is less a pop than a catastrophic tearing of the air. Tracers, 1 in every 5 rounds, paint a solid line of fire across the tarmac. The 50 caliber rounds, each a small, high-velocity explosive, are not just punching holes. They are incendiary, designed to ignite. They stitch through the thin aluminum skin of a Zero, which shudders under the impacts as fuel sprays from its ruptured tanks. Stout adjusts his aim, walking the fire directly into the fuel drums. The drums disintegrate. 50 caliber fire rips through the thin steel, and the high-octane aviation fuel vaporizes, then ignites in a single, massive fireball. The explosion engulfs both bombers, leaping 50 feet into the air. The blast wave is a physical fist that slams into Stout's Hellcat, rocking it violently as he pulls up hard to clear the inferno. Behind him, the fire spreads with terrifying, non-linear speed. This is the chain reaction he banked his life on. The first burning zero ignites the aircraft parked beside it. That fire, fed by thousands of gallons of fuel, spreads to another, then another. Each new aircraft cooks off, its own fuel and ammunition feeding the next explosion. Within seconds, half the northern row is a churning mass of flame and smoke. Japanese ground crews run in all directions, their desperate attempts to save the aircraft completely abandoned. Only now do the anti-aircraft gunners reach their positions. They open fire, but Stout is already climbing away, weaving to spoil their aim. 20mm tracers arc past his canopy. He feels the impacts, a solid thump, 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 as rounds punch through his tail section. Warning lights flicker on his instrument panel. But the engine, a testament to American engineering, keeps running strong. He banks hard right, gaining altitude, and circles back. His heart is pounding, but his mind is cold. Below, the devastation is biblical. Nearly 20 aircraft are burning, the flames spreading across the tarmac in a river of fire. A thick, black column of smoke boils into the sky, a funeral pyre visible for miles. But his job is not done. On the southern end of the field, at least 20 more aircraft, including several bombers, sit untouched. He checks his ammunition counter. Half gone. He has maybe 6 seconds of firing time left. This is the decision point. The gunners are ready now. They are tracking him. The sky is no longer clear. It is filled with flak. To go back for a second pass is not just dangerous. It is, by all military logic, suicide. He has already struck a massive blow. He has damaged the enemy and can return with vital intelligence. No one would fault him for escaping now. But those 20 remaining planes are still a threat. They are still enough to kill hundreds of Marines. Stout rolls the Hellcat inverted and dives anyway. This time, the anti-aircraft fire is immediate, intense, and accurate. The air around him fills with angry red and white tracers. The Hellcat shudders under more impacts, as metal tears somewhere in the fuselage. He jinks, left, then right, never holding a straight line, making himself the hardest target possible. He comes in from a different angle, targeting the bombers on the southern end. His remaining ammunition hammers into the aircraft, shredding control surfaces and puncturing fuel tanks. He walks his fire across a fuel truck parked next to a bomber. The truck explodes with enough force to flip the nearby aircraft onto its back. The secondary explosions begin immediately. Burning fuel from the truck spreads to stacked ammunition crates, which detonate in a rapid series of blasts. The bomber's own ordnance cooks off, tearing the aircraft apart from within. Within moments, the southern row is burning as fiercely as the northern. Stout's guns fall silent, empty. He has fired every single round. He pulls up, and this time, the Hellcat fights him. It feels sluggish, damaged. More warning lights are lit. Something is leaking, leaving a thin trail of smoke. But below him, the entire airfield is an inferno. Every aircraft, every fuel drum, every structure is consumed. The threat is gone. Robert Stout pointed the nose of his crippled Hellcat toward the open ocean and nursed it back toward the USS Hornet. The mission was accomplished, but survival was not yet guaranteed. The adrenaline of combat faded, replaced by the cold, mechanical reality of flying a machine on the brink of failure. The hydraulics were failing, making the controls feel heavy and unresponsive, as if he were trying to fly the plane through wet concrete. Oil pressure was dropping, a fluctuating needle that promised an imminent engine seizure. He wasn't even sure the landing gear would extend. The flight back was an eternity, a lonely transit between two worlds. Behind him lay a pillar of smoke, rising thousands of feet. A self-made monument to 40 destroyed aircraft. Ahead lay the fleet, and with it, a reckoning. The realization of what he had just done settled in. He had flagrantly, unequivocally, disobeyed a direct order. His mission was reconnaissance. He was to take photographs and return. Instead, he had single-handedly initiated a major strike, committing his aircraft to a fight he was never meant to pick. Court-martial was a distinct and very real possibility. He could be stripped of his rank, his wings, and dishonorably discharged. But as he wrestled with the damaged controls, he weighed that fate against the alternative. He thought of the intelligence report, the one that declared the field abandoned. Had he followed orders, he would have delivered his photographs of 40 fully armed planes to a command structure that would take 24 hours to react. By then, those planes would be airborne, and the beaches of Peleliu would run red before the 1st Marine Platoon could establish a foothold. The choice was between his career and their lives. He'd made it in 30 seconds. The Hornet appeared on the horizon, a gray silhouette against the vast blue. Stout radioed the tower, his voice calm, professional, belying the chaos of the last hour. "Hornet, this is Stout. I have significant combat damage. Uncertain about landing gear. Requesting priority landing." The carrier's response was immediate. The deck was cleared. The ship turned into the wind, its engines churning the Pacific white. This was the most dangerous part. He dropped his landing gear. 2 green lights, 1 red. The starboard wheel wouldn't lock. He would be landing on a partially collapsed gear. He came in hot, his damaged controls making a gentle, precise landing impossible. He slammed onto the steel deck hard, the impact buckling metal. The damaged gear held just long enough for his tailhook to catch the second wire, yanking the 12,000-pound fighter to a violent halt. Deck crews, accustomed to combat damage, swarmed the aircraft before the propellers even stopped spinning. They froze. The Hellcat was not just damaged, it was shredded. The tail section was a latticework of torn aluminum. The fuselage had over a dozen gaping holes, some the size of a man's fist. The paint was scorched black from flying through his own explosions. Stout, exhausted, climbed down from the cockpit and found himself facing a wall of gold braid. The air boss was there, his face thunderous. The squadron commander was next to him, looking apoplectic. The ship's intelligence officer pushed through, his face a mask of confusion. The air boss spoke first, his voice tight with fury. Major, your orders were reconnaissance. Why did you return with this level of combat damage? The squadron commander cut him off. And why did you break radio silence only after the engagement? The intelligence officer, holding a clipboard, had the most practical question. Stout stood on the deck, the smell of cordite and burned oil still on his flight suit. His report was simple, blunt, and utterly unbelievable. The airfield wasn't abandoned. It was packed. At least 40 Japanese aircraft, armed and fueled, preparing to attack the invasion fleet. He paused, letting the words land. The officers stared, their anger momentarily replaced by shock. The intelligence officer started to speak. 40 aircraft? Major, our last report showed... Stout cut him off. They were there. I destroyed them. The silence on the flight deck was absolute, broken only by the wind. The intelligence officer's face went pale. This report didn't just contradict his data. It invalidated the entire operational picture for the invasion. Destroyed them, the squadron commander repeated. Destroyed what, Major? Stout looked him in the eye. All of them. 40 aircraft gone. 8 minutes, start to finish. The officers stared at him as if he had just confessed to madness. 40 aircraft, destroyed. By one pilot, in one aircraft, on a mission where he was explicitly ordered not to engage. It was impossible. It was a fantasy. And yet, the smoking, shredded, bullet-riddled wreck of a Hellcat behind him was a stark, physical testament that something extraordinary had occurred. The intelligence officer, his voice barely a whisper, asked him to repeat the number. The geopolitical stakes of Stout's claim were astronomical. If he was lying, he was insane. If he was telling the truth, he had just single-handedly altered the opening phase of Operation Stalemate 2. The disbelief on the Hornet's flight deck was a tangible thing, a wall of institutional skepticism. Major Stout's claim was not just bold, it was operationally fantastical. But 24 hours later, the new reconnaissance photos came back, and the fantasy was confirmed as cold, hard fact. The northern airfield at Peleliu was gone. It had been wiped from the map, where 40 aircraft had sat poised for attack. Aerial photos now showed nothing but the blackened, skeletal hulks of Japanese planes scattered across a scorched tarmac. Fuel dumps were not just burned, they were craters. Structures were rubble. The intelligence officers, who had doubted Stout's report, now stared at the photos, cross-referencing them with his debrief. The count was exact. 40 aircraft destroyed. The geopolitical implications hit the fleet's command staff instantly. The entire Japanese air threat on Peleliu, the primary danger to the amphibious assault, had been neutralized. The 28,000 Marines of the 1st Marine Division, already in transit, would now hit the beaches under a sky of complete American air superiority. The Japanese strategy of a crippling air attack on the vulnerable, approaching fleet was now in ashes. The Navy's bureaucracy, which Stout had so feared, now faced a profound dilemma. By the letter of the law, Major Robert Cowboy, Stout was guilty of catastrophic insubordination. He had abandoned his mission, broken radio silence, and engaged the enemy without orders.
The contrast, as
risking
you
a
can see,
valuable
is
aircraft
stark.
and
It's
pilot.
incredible what
He
modern
was,
techniques can
by
achieve
all
compared to the
definitions,
original state.
eligible for a court-martial.
Day and night,
But in the
these brave
cold
merchant
calculus of
mariners and
war,
their naval
his
escorts
actions
ensure
had
the
also
uninterrupted
achieved
flow
a strategic victory equivalent to a full squadron bombing raid. And he had done it at the single most critical moment. He had not just followed his orders, he had understood the intent behind them. The ultimate mission was to protect the invasion. He had done so decisively. The Navy chose not to punish its pilot. Instead, it awarded him the Navy Cross, its second highest decoration for combat valor. The citation praised his extraordinary heroism and aggressive fighting spirit in attacking a vastly superior enemy force alone. His decision, the Navy officially recognized, had directly saved American lives. But this singular act of aerial brilliance did not mean the battle was won. On September 15th, 1944, the Marines landed on Peleliu and immediately plunged into one of the most savage and brutal meat grinders of the Pacific War. The Japanese, under Colonel Kunio Nakagawa, had abandoned the traditional beach defense. They had turned the island's coral ridges, particularly Bloody Nose Ridge, into a fortified, interlocking system of caves, pillboxes, and artillery positions that turned every yard of ground into a killing zone. The battle, expected to last 4 days, dragged on for over 2 agonizing months. It cost the Marines and Army nearly 2,000 American lives and over 8,000 wounded. Yet, military historians looking back at the battle, one defined by its horrific casualty rates, all point to Stout's 8-minute attack as a critical, life-saving event. They calculated that those 40 Japanese aircraft, had they launched, would have inflicted devastating losses on the first waves. Attacking amphibious assaults was a Japanese specialty. The Marines, packed into slow-moving landing craft and transport ships, would have been helpless, unable to take cover or maneuver. Stout's solo attack, by eliminating this threat, is estimated to have saved between 500 and 1,000 Marine lives on that first day alone. He didn't make the Battle of Peleliu easy, but he prevented it from being an even greater catastrophe. After the war, Robert Stout returned to California. He lived quietly. He did not speak of what he had done. His children grew up knowing only that their father had served in the Pacific. The details of his heroism remained unknown to them for decades. The Navy Cross was not displayed on a wall. It sat in a drawer. When friends or historians, having uncovered the records, would ask him about the attack, he would downplay it. "I saw planes that needed destroying, so I destroyed them," he'd say. Any pilot would have done the same. But that is the crucial point. Not every pilot would have. Most would have followed orders. Most would have radioed back and let the bureaucracy handle it. And the Japanese would have had time to scatter or launch. Stout's greatness was not just his skill, but his willingness to trust his own judgment when it mattered most. His story remained largely unknown until decades later, when historians cross-referenced his Navy Cross citation with Japanese records and the stunning reconnaissance photos. They realized the full significance of what he had accomplished. 1 man, 1 aircraft, 8 minutes, 40 enemy planes destroyed, 1,000 lives saved. His attack is now studied by military strategists to this day, a textbook example of initiative at the tactical level. He demonstrated that the person on the ground, seeing the situation with their own eyes, can sometimes have better judgment than commanders looking at maps miles away. His attack was also a masterclass in tactical prioritization. He didn't waste his 12 seconds of ammunition trying to kill 40 planes individually. He identified the fuel drums as the critical vulnerability and lit the fuse. Robert "Cowboy" Stout died in 2005 at the age of 89. His legacy is not just one of the most successful solo strikes in aviation history. It is a profound lesson in leadership. It lives in every tactical training course that teaches initiative over blind obedience and adaptation over rigidity. Sometimes, the most heroic thing a soldier can do is refuse to follow an order, not out of rebellion, but because the mission itself demands it.